Welcome back, fellow adventurers and seekers of wisdom. Today, I have a story for you that takes place high up in the mountains, where the air is thin, the paths are steep, and every decision can mean the difference between success and failure. It's a story about a climber who faced a dilemma that went beyond physical challenges, a dilemma that tested his ambition, his judgment, and his ability to recognize his own limits. As you listen, I encourage you to reflect on your own journey, your own ambitions, and the decisions you make to achieve them. In a remote village nestled in the foothills of a mighty mountain range, there lived a young man named Elian. From a young age, Elian had been captivated by the mountains that surrounded his village. He would spend hours staring up at the towering peaks, his heart filled with a burning desire to conquer them. To him, each peak was a challenge, a test of strength and willpower, and a symbol of achieving greatness. As Elian grew older, his fascination with the mountains only deepened. He trained tirelessly, learning everything he could about climbing. He honed his skills, built his endurance, and prepared himself for the day when he would take on the tallest, most dangerous peak in the entire range, a peak known as the Crown of the Sky. The Crown was no ordinary mountain. It was feared by climbers far and wide for its sheer cliffs, unpredictable weather, and treacherous paths. Many had tried to reach its summit, but few had succeeded. One summer morning, as the sun rose over the village, Elian made up his mind. He packed his gear, bid farewell to his family, and set off on his long-awaited adventure. His goal was clear: to reach the summit of the Crown and prove to himself and the world that he was worthy of the title Master Climber. With his backpack full of supplies and his heart brimming with excitement, Elian began his ascent. The first few days of the journey were challenging but manageable. Elian moved with confidence, using every skill he had learned over the years. He scaled steep cliffs, crossed narrow ledges, and navigated through fog-covered paths. With each step, he felt himself getting closer to his goal. But as he climbed higher, the terrain grew harsher, the air thinner, and the path more treacherous. Elian reached the base of the final ascent, the last stretch before the summit. It was a vertical wall of ice and rock, towering above him like an impenetrable fortress. He paused for a moment, staring up at the daunting challenge ahead. The wind howled around him, carrying with it a biting cold that seemed to cut through his clothing. But Elian's resolve did not waver. He had come too far to turn back now. Halfway up the ascent, the weather began to change. Dark clouds rolled in, and the wind picked up speed, whipping snow and ice into Elian's face. Visibility dropped to almost nothing, and the temperature plummeted. Elian knew the risks of continuing in such conditions, but his ambition pushed him forward. Just a little further, he thought. I'm so close. But as Elian climbed higher, the conditions worsened. The wind roared like a beast, shaking him on the ledge. Ice began to form on his gear, making it harder to grip. His hands grew numb, and every muscle in his body screamed with exhaustion. He glanced up at the summit, which was now hidden in a swirling storm. A wave of doubt washed over him. Should he keep going, or should he turn back? Elian's heart was torn. The summit was so close, perhaps just an hour or two away, but the storm was growing fiercer by the minute. He had heard stories of climbers who had pressed on in such conditions, only to be swept off the mountain by avalanches or trapped in blizzards. He had also heard of those who had turned back, abandoning their dreams in the face of danger. For Elian, the thought of turning back felt like failure. He had trained for years for this moment, endured countless hardships, and pushed himself to the brink. Could he really just walk away? But then he remembered something his mentor had once told him. A true climber doesn't just conquer mountains, he conquers himself. Knowing when to push and when to pull back is the mark of a wise climber. Elian closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He thought about his family back home, waiting for his safe return. He thought about the promise he had made to himself to climb not just for glory, but for the love of the mountains and the journey itself. Slowly he opened his eyes, and with a heavy heart, he made his decision. He would turn back. Elion's descent was slow and arduous. The storm raged around him, and every step was a battle against the elements. But as he descended, a sense of calm settled over him. He knew he had made the right choice. Sometimes, true strength lies not in reaching the summit, but in recognizing when to step back and live to climb another day. When Elion finally reached the base of the mountain, the storm had subsided.